Hey, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive tonight. Sorry about last week. I am still dealing with air conditioning issues. I'm getting my air conditioning unit replaced tomorrow. So if you hear any background noises tonight from my side, it is likely the fan that I've got blowing on. Generally more the computer than me, just to make sure it keeps cool for the duration of the broadcast. But anyway, tonight we were talking about the wonders of air conditioning. Dan's going to talk about the Freedom Fest that he went to last week. We'll also talk about quantum computing and its possibilities, which we touched on in the last show. And then we are going to do our first state feature, or first country feature on Vatican City. So stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll do the CNN News Quiz and talk about some other news stories of the week. So thank you for joining us. And with that, I will bring on my co-host from Tennessee, AJ. What's up? How you doing?
Are you okay? I've got air conditioning.
I'm
okay.
I'm moist. I am very moist. And from Maryland, Dan the Man Fishman.
What's up, everybody?
How's
my volume?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. I got a new laptop and it's awesome, but I didn't plug everything in, and I'm dealing with docking station hell. And so that's why I look the way I look. And actually, I look the way I look because this is me.
Genetics,
so
baby.
My camera looks the way that it looks. So I'm just using the laptop. No great microphone, no great camera. Y'all just have to deal.
That works, man. I'm okay with that. I enjoy the green scheme.
What's up, AJ?
Not much. For you in Tennessee?
For me in Tennessee?
Were you in Tennessee?
I was in Tennessee. I was in Memphis, and I got to tell you, we're going to lead into this right now. Man, Memphis was awesome. Freedom Fest was one thing, and Memphis was another thing. And the getting to Memphis, the first day I was in there, I was doing Freedom Fest things. I was lucky enough to have two great guys, Nick Sarwark and Jeff Lyons, help me out with my table. So we had our first presentation. It was a panel. It was me, Olivia Rondo, Lauren Doherty, Olivia Rondo from Fox and CNN, Lauren Doherty, former CEO of Yow, Lori Williams, managing editor of AEIR, and Melissa Beloka, who is head of the Lola LA chapter and also an attorney. We had an amazing conversation about consent culture in the liberty movement, and tying the fact that, consent, being able to talk about consent is core to our movement, understanding that, the essence of what we want out of a libertarian society is that everybody would respect each other enough to never violate anybody else's consent. And applying it to the highest level of politics, that means nobody gets to tax you without your consent. Nobody gets to draft you without your consent. All these political things. But we have to wake up and recognize the fact that in the liberty movement, we are not practicing consent culture at the lowest level. And we had a frank conversation about the fact that the movement is majority men who don't understand, a lot of them don't understand how to treat other people with respect, specifically women. And I feel bad me talking about this because on the panel, it was me shutting up and listening to everybody, all the women on the panel talk about it. Josh Eckel was also on our panel. Josh and Lauren talked about running large organizations and maintaining that, how to maintain a culture of respect in a large organization. And we talked about the fact that there has to be a double down in our community on saying we're going to be respectful to each other first, okay, and call it out. The Joe Jorgensen quote of "It's not enough to be passively not racist; I have to be actively anti-racist." It has to be the same thing in terms of consent culture. When we see stuff happen, when you see somebody get touched, a hand on the back, something like that, and it's not okay, you can ask. You can say, "Hey, is that okay? Is it all right if I touch you right now?" Something like that. Nobody's ever going to be offended if you say, "Hey, is it okay if I touch you right now?" And then the other thing about it is that people say, "Oh, it really ruins the mood." There are ways to ask for consent that are clear to everybody that don't necessarily have to be verbal, too. But 2 rules of thumb I will give to every man. Number 1, unless a woman is crowning in front of you, don't ask her if she's pregnant. Number 2, if you have any question as to whether or not a person has consent, well, whether or not you touch them, ask.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's so simple. And I feel bad that AJ has to listen to us talk about this because every woman in the movement has had to put up with this shit and has made this speech. We just got to fix it. And so we got to fix it among ourselves. So that was great. The panel was really well received. We got a lot of what I would consider good questions of people who sadly just didn't get the issue and would say, well, but I'm like, no, there's no buts about it. There's not a situation in which you shouldn't either be 100% sure, 110% sure, or asking for consent, because we can't ask for a government that is focused on consenting our culture if we're constantly undermining it in our own lives. And in the same vein, every time the government does something that undermines consent culture, it puts people at risk, because now people start thinking, oh, look, the government didn't ask for consent before it forced me to get vaccinated. The government didn't ask me for consent before they drafted me, all these other things. And they say, oh, well, if the government doesn't need consent, maybe there are situations where I don't really need complete consent. And I want to say one of the things that came up in the panel is that there's this phrase that Planned Parenthood teaches about consent. And the phrase they use is fries. And that's easy for guys to remember because we love fries. Consent has to be full, revocable. Okay, somebody can consent to something and they say, you know what, I've reached my limit, stop. That's it. Informed, explicit. You have to be consenting to the exact thing. It's not vague. I didn't consent to help you rob the store just because I said I would give you a ride somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the S stands for now. So maybe fries was the best thing. But full, revocable, informed, and explicit. And we'll look up the S. Somebody will tell. Somebody in the audience can tell us.
Yeah.
So that part was awesome. Then the next thing we did was I went and gave a pitch for there's a thing called Pitch Fest, Subversion Pitch Fest, and we pitched ideas that were subversive. And I pitched a company that is launching in August, on August 1st, tellgovernment.com. Go to tellgovernment.com. Don't go just yet because we're launching. But you put in your address. The website lists every elected official from Joe Biden down to your school board. And next to their name is a button that says send them a postcard. Click on that. Big 6x4 postcard. Put in whatever you want, pictures, words, whatever. Click a button, you pay $1.25, and it sends a postcard. Yes, you can put in whatever you want. Now, here is the catch, okay? You have to pay to send that postcard like you would buying a stamp.
Sure.
A little bit more expensive. On the other hand, you don't actually have to buy a postcard, so it's pretty good. But then the other thing about it is that because you paid, we know the billing address on your credit card, and we use that for the return address on the postcard. So you can send whatever you want. And I was concerned about this, and I'll tell you that I spoke to a lawyer about this. Might have been Nick Farrar. And because I was worried because there are certain things that are illegal to send by mail, certain images and stuff like that. However,
I can't send them a picture of my balls.
Your balls actually are specifically allowed by congressional mandate.
My balls are mandated, baby.
You would actually have to use your balls on a mandate.
Nice.
Sorry.
What's up, Jasper? Hey, James.
So that was awesome. I came in second place. The guys who came in first place, middle school MBA. It's essentially curriculum to teach kids in 6th and 7th grade the basics of an MBA, the basics of capitalism, economy, stuff like that. The idea that if they're exposed to basic economics early, they'd be less susceptible to some of the crazy shit when, like, people say, go to college, we'll give you a loan that you pay off for the rest of your life. Yeah, so we arm them against that. But then Friday night, holy cow, we went out, and I'm going to name some names for people who know the principles involved. It was me, Nick Sarwark, Dan Berman, Kate Prather, who's the secretary from or treasurer from Libertarian Party of Texas, and David Gay. Some of you may know him on Facebook. That's his last name. So first we went to Gus's Fried Chicken. Woo-wee! Now, I had been incredibly disappointed when I came to Nashville and I had Nashville's hot chicken. I mean, it's just chicken with a lot of hot sauce on it. I can do that. But Gus's Fried Chicken, man, that stuff was amazing. They clearly brined it for like a day beforehand. Unbelievably juicy. Came out, oh, God, it was just fantastic. So we ate a lot of that. Then we were going to try to go down to Beale Street. However, and Beale Street is like, it's a street with a lot of bars and places playing music and stuff like that. But first of all, you have to pay $5 to get onto the street, which I was already bullshit about. And then you have to be searched. Some of us may or may not have been carrying concealed. And so we couldn't get onto the street. So we ended up going to a place that I almost don't want to say the name of it, but I'm going to. Wild Bill's. And if you were in Memphis, you would have to go to Wild Bill's. Now, we were, it's about 12 miles east of downtown. For those of you who know Memphis, yeah, that's not the best neighborhood. However, and I will say that when we got there, we were the only people there who looked like we look. However, the music was unbelievable. It was everything you want out of Delta blues, which, you know, is the blues that came out of the Mississippi River Delta, Muddy Waters, Howling Wolf, that sort. And it was just, it was amazing. And the reason why, and the locals could not have been more welcoming to us. And so, you know, Freedom Fest is all about injustices. The biggest injustice of the entire trip was the fact that that place was not packed on a Friday night. It was a small little venue, and there were maybe 40 people in there, maybe 35. It was low. We came in, there was a table right in front of the band. So we got there, we just sat down. Buckets of Heineken, 6 Heinekens, $25. Already crazy cheap. Then we get there, and the music is unbelievable. It's so good that, you know, again, people who know me, they know me, know Nick, you know Dan Berman. We are not built for dancing. But there was a point in time at which the music was so good that the spirit literally filled us. And we got up and we danced with everybody else in the bar who was dancing. It was just amazing. I mean, I've never had, and I, you know, people know me, I was a semi-professional musician, right? I was at a band in Austin. Right? I have never seen that happen. I mean, it helps that I love the blues, but holy crap, it was unbelievable. So we stayed there for 2 sets, left at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And we left, looked at Nick, and I got up close and I said, we are doing everything exactly the same tomorrow night, except that we're going to get high earlier.
Nice.
So we got back, but I'm old, folks. That's just all there is to it. And the next night at like 8 o'clock at night, I'm like, okay, I can do the chicken, but I can't go to the bar again. I just can't make it. So sad. But I got to hang out with friends. And the other thing that was amazing about this, and, you know, it's something that I talked to people about doing, but I sort of finally took my own advice. I didn't work too hard while I was there. And I was very deliberate to make time to spend with friends and just talk about friend shit, not talk about liberty crap or anything else. And then the other thing, just to talk about sort of on a personal growth scale, a lot of my friends knew that I'd had, sort of sadness in my life in January and February when things went south with People for Liberty. And, they gave me some good counsel about it. One of which was that, they said, and this part is just straightforward, but if you completely give your heart to everybody, some people are going to step on it, and that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, you can be sad about it if you want, but if you stop doing that, you're not going to be doing the thing that makes you happy, because you are happiest when you give of yourself. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, it just sucks, but that's it. And people are always going to have the ability to hurt me. But if I don't give them that ability, then I'm not trusting. I don't want to be a person who doesn't trust people. So I just got to live with the things. And that was my revelation. That's what Freedom Fest was. The festival itself, small attendance. It was, part of it is Memphis is harder to get to than other places. Part of it is that when Freedom Fest is in Las Vegas, everybody from California can drive there. Not a lot of, not as conservatives as previous ones that I've seen. RFK Jr. was there. That was very interesting. And his speech was like point on. Like, he knew his audience. He talked about vaccine mandates, talked about, maybe COVID's a hoax. He didn't repeat his statement. He didn't repeat his statement where he said that COVID might have been that the people. What did he say? He said
manufactured to not affect Jewish individuals.
Jews and Chinese.
It sounds like that German New Medicine.
Yeah. That was some pretty crazy shit when it happened. And the audience is the audience. He was very well received there. Tulsi was there earlier. She was pretty well received as well. So it's interesting to see these sort of rogue Democrats showing up at Liberty Movement events, thinking, if I got my base and I could get the Liberty Movement behind me, I would go somewhere. So that was interesting. I did see some of the films at the Anthem Film Festival. People should definitely look them up. Lou Perez's film was fantastic. It starts off, it's two women outside a garage. The first one says, "Hey, Kate, are you really sure we should be doing this?" She's like, "Sally, we have no other choice." The garage door opens, and it's Lou Perez sitting at a desk, a bunch of kilos of white powder. He's like, "So, you want the baby formula?"
Wow.
And then you can imagine where the sketch goes from there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. They blame it all on the government, talk about the fact that there's plenty of baby formula in Europe. Joe Biden is making me millions of dollars. That sort of thing. Really good. I'd like to see that. Who else did I see there at Freedom Fest? All the players from the movement were there. The big organizations, the small organizations. But it was interesting because there's sort of a, this lull right now. Like, it's not clear where the energy is. I know that the DeSantis campaign is essentially imploded, but it's not like there's all these people who are excited about the Trump campaign. I think the Trumpers are excited about the Trump campaign, but there's a lot of people who are like, please don't let that be our only option. And they talked about that there. It was interesting to see, real Republicans who are afraid of where the party is going. Bad news for you guys. The party's already been there. Yeah. I want to make the dirty joke of where the party is, and but I'm not going to
make this joke.
Anyway, so that's what Freedom Fest was. It was pretty awesome. I recommend people who haven't been. it's usually about $300, $400, $300 if you buy your tickets now for Vegas, and then obviously 4 days in Vegas to run you. They usually get a deal on hotels, so about $150, $200 a night. It's a lot of money. I can't deny it, but it's an interesting Liberty Festival. And of course, if you want to go Vegas, then it's not a bad way to go there. You would spend more for the hotel rooms anyway.
Yeah. Your consent culture panel that you did, I think it would be interesting with Lauren Doherty on there, because she took over an organization that had just gone through a really messy sexual harassment scandal.
Yeah, we can say the CEO was accused of, I think was he accused of rape, or was he accused of sexual harassment?
I don't know about rape, but I know it was harassment of several female staffers.
Yeah. So I'm unclear exactly what happened, but yeah, Lauren stepped into his position, and I mean, she's always, I mean, obviously, people who don't know her, but people who do, she's a person of the highest moral integrity. She exudes character. My favorite Lauren story was at Freedom Fest 2 years ago, right after she got the job. Okay. Arguably the most powerful job in the Liberty movement. And she walked the floor, and she was wearing comfortable clothes and comfortable shoes. She had nothing to prove to anybody. And I'm like, that is such a badass power move. It's awesome. And that's who Lauren is. It was just integrity, down to business, stuff like that. And she talked at length about a bunch of different issues. One of the ones that we talked about, a little bit off topic, but it's something that people can advocate for. There's two real problems with it. So first of all, a lot of rape kits are not getting processed. It's just a terrible problem.
Yeah.
And it's
something
something
that way for
about.
years.
But what's even worse about it is that when they do process the rape kit, they store all the DNA in the system, including the women who are submitting to the rape kit, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just insane. And so Lauren talked at length about how that's something that we can talk about with consent culture, and it ties into the fact that we really do need to work on making sure that rape kits are getting processed, because people who commit rape are terrible, terrible, terrible people. We need to remove them from society. But secondly, it's tough enough to get people to do the rape kit. And we've had all this training in our society. Go get a rape kit done. Go get a rape kit done. But those women are not consenting to have their DNA added into this list of people who have been raped.
That's massive database and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have to have this idea of what consent means. Consent does not mean that I am consenting to, you collecting information on me. It means that I am, in this case, participating to help solve a crime. It's not explicit and it's not informed. And so, that's one of the big places that we can really make a difference. And I'm glad that Lauren is sort of championing that cause.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had a fun time in Memphis. I definitely want to go down to Memphis. I haven't been to Memphis since, I think, 1987. So it's been a long time.
It's amazing. Another
we didn't
thing
even stay in there.
We met a guy there who, was from one of the big families in Memphis. And his business was cotton, not shockingly. But he took us down through the streets where cotton used to be king. And there are all these buildings with these giant windows in them. And he's like, you see how they have all these giant windows? That's because the quality of cotton is based on separating cotton and looking at the color quality in strong sunlight. And so they have all these windows built in so that they have these tables lay out and people would look at the cotton in front of them. And I'm like, how fascinating. That guy took us to just one of the best barbecue places. And people in Memphis were so friendly too. So we had great barbecue for lunch before we had the Gus's fried chicken. And I had man, I don't even know what it was. It was called the chopped sandwich on Texas toast, and it had coleslaw in it as well as all the barbecue. And I'm pretty sure it was chopped beef, but it might have been pork. Maybe it was a mixture. I don't know, but it was delicious.
Yeah.
Um,
I need to do a food tour of Memphis.
yeah, Memphis is amazing. I did not go to. I'd been to Graceland beforehand, James, and so I didn't do it this time. I mean, a lot of people do. So I did 2 tours. I did the Civil Rights Museum, which is amazing. I didn't even realize what it was. The National Civil Rights Museum is the Loretta Motel. Maybe I'm getting the name wrong, but it's the motel where Dr. King was shot, and they actually have preserved the entire hotel as well as the building across the way where James Earl Ray shot him from. Then you go inside, and it's an amazing museum talking about the history of the civil rights movement, which is always meaningful to me because I despair a lot about the liberty movement. I'm like, we're getting nowhere. If anything, in the last 2 years, we have gone backwards. But when I despair of that,
that's global too.
Exactly. But when I despair about that, then I see the civil rights movement. And I'm like, Jesus, what the fuck am I bitching about? Those guys had everything, right? I mean, the march across the bridge, the dogs, Bull Connor, all that crap, the forces that they fought against, and they triumphed. Assassinations,
lynchings,
lynchings, right? And so, now when we have this situation, we turn this a little bit, and we talk about the James Aldean song, right? Not in a small town or whatever it's called. That's what we're talking about, is the fact that people fought against this shit and won. And the only way we maintain it is to be vigilant against its return. And so that's what, for me, one of the most meaningful things about Memphis was going on that tour. And I actually had just recently been to the National African American History Museum here in DC, at Smithsonian. That's also excellent. And that goes a lot more into the slave trade, what was happening. Civil Rights Museum is really focused on the civil rights movement and all the things that happened. And so I had, growing up, and we've talked about this before, and I was raised Jewish, didn't stick, but we had a picture up in my temple of the Mississippi burning kids. And I can't remember their names now. Mickey, I can't remember the other 2 guys, but so
I saw that movie like 80 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie.
Fantastic movie.
And the epiphany that I've had is that slavery to the civil rights movement is both America's worst moment in history and our proudest moment, because all the terrible things, right? Slavery, Jim Crow, the Klan, all this terrible shit. But all the good people who stepped up and said it's not okay and fought against it. And slavery was entrenched in the United States, in the South. I mean, and it is completely true to say that a lot of the early wealth of the United States was built on slavery, and there is no future wealth without a lot of that earlier wealth.
Yep.
But that issue of what we've done to resolve it, we obviously we haven't fixed it. I mean, if anything, that's what Jason Aldean has taught us, is that this issue isn't over.
No.
People don't understand about the factors of intimidation, the subtle things where people are trying to say, well, let's bring back a little common sense law enforcement, where a bunch of good old boys, as he says, decide who are the people who are going to get lynched. Lynching's just
that's my representative, Paul Sherrill, that suggested that, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he
that we
What did
should
wanted
he
bring
do?
back
lynching,
lynching. Yeah,
lynching back
he
in
said
the
it.
state code.
He said it in sessions.
I mean, that part of stuff, that's just, it's insane. I don't know how we got back here, but I do know that it's not an option for us to not speak out about it. And so
Yep.
I'm charging everybody here with the idea that they do need to say something.
And it's gotten to the point where the people have gotten so comfortable with just being horrible human beings lately, like calling out stuff like the Aldine song, or Black Lives Matters, things like that. Then you're accused of being some woke moralist. That and you get a lot of pushback on that now, and it's like, no, this is, we need to call this bullshit out, because you continue to marginalize and push people to the side and oppress them. you know we're not a free nation. We're not. You can't argue that we're a free nation or the greatest nation on earth, and continue to you know pull this bullshit.
Yeah. I mean,
Agreed
that,
100%. Do you know that, okay, the video, since it has come up, and this is Tennessee, and I guess that's my area of expertise, is dumb redneck bullshit. So here we go. Are you ready? Columbia, Tennessee. The courthouse where he had the video made, of course, was the site of not only a lynching in 1927, but a race riot when actually what happened is over 100 Black people were beaten and arrested by state troopers, business owners. These were not vagrants. These were Black business owners. They were beaten and arrested. Later, everything was thrown out, of course, but this happened in the 40s. The week before all of this big Jason Aldean video came out, the KKK well, I'm not going to say the KKK. This guy and this kid put KKK flyers on Black churches and Black businesses in Columbia, Tennessee. Tennessee's hot right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many rebel flags. There's more rebel flags than I can ever remember there being, me growing up here. That's 40 years. And I've seen more now than I've ever seen before. And I don't think it's because I'm just paying attention more, because I paid attention then too. Because I grew up with my mom, who was never going to be okay with anyone being racist in her presence. That's just not a thing that happens. You don't do that in front of Rachel. She'll correct you, and she'll make you feel bad for it. Oh, no, I don't think your mama would like that. Let's not mistreat people. And she could do it in such a way that you were like, okay, Southern lady told me to stop. I guess I better put this away. And she has that power, and that's great. But she also taught me that everyone is equal and that girls are allowed to think, because I was the asthmatic kid that couldn't play sports or do much of anything really, but read books. So Tennessee's really scary right now. And I mean, I'm glad that you had a good time in Memphis. When I was in Memphis, the Airbnb we stayed at, there was about 45 minutes where there were just gunshots. So we laid on the floor.
Mm.
And I was there during the pandemic. That's when everybody was behaving. So,
The thing I remember about Memphis is that if you ever watch The First 48, which is a show that features the first 48 hours of a murder
that's
investigation,
yeah.
a lot of times it's in Memphis or Atlanta or Louisville. You're on mute, Dan. I can't hear you. I can hear you.
Oh no. Do you
Mime,
know sign language?
mime it.
2 words. First word.
how about now?
There we go.
All
There
right.
you are.
I tried plugging in the docking station and screwed up some stuff.
Yeah.
So Memphis is, according to this great tour guide that we had, the most dangerous city in terms of the United States. It's the highest incident of violent crime. Now, what he said, and I don't know if this is true, is that it's really 4 neighborhoods that are like that. and all the crime happens in those areas. I don't know if that's true or not, if that's his statement or anything like that.
No,
But
no, there's something about that, the 4 areas, they call it something. Um, oh, it'll come back to me. Go ahead, sorry.
well, I mean that was just my point. It was an interesting statement. And now the thing about it is that what he said this guy, and it was really just great. He was a great guy. But he's like, it's crazy to me that Nashville Nashville is every bit as violent as Memphis. It's like, but there's some sort of deal going on, and there's no point in being a libertarian unless you believe in conspiracy theories. He's like, the Nashville media does not report on local crime. They just don't. And it's like, the Grand Ole Opry and all these other places, because they have such a tourism industry, made a deal and
That's
said,
why.
look, if you keep telling people it's dangerous, nobody's going to come. So don't do that anymore.
Also,
Do you know
you
how
got to.
pissed everybody was when that bomb went off downtown and they had no choice but to report it?
Yeah. And you also remember that being the state capital, you got all the politicians there, and higher crime leads to more challengers when it comes to politics. So, um, you know, I'm sure that helps them as well, keeping
Wait,
those news stories off the
is,
air.
is Nashville the capital?
Yes,
Yeah,
Why did I think it was Knoxville?
I don't
no, that's the capital of Orange.
Okay.
know.
Um, all right.
That's the
Well,
capital on Saturdays.
but apparently, until relatively recently, like 25 years ago, Memphis was bigger than Nashville. And if you think about it, that makes sense, right? Memphis is on the river. Why is Nashville even a city? I don't know. Is it a rail station? Is there a
Probably.
river that runs? The Cumberland doesn't run through there, does it? Why is Nashville? I mean, usually cities.
There is a river that runs through Nashville.
Is there?
Yes.
distinctly remember that there's a river. I don't know which one it is,
All right.
but there is a river.
So then that makes more sense, because generally cities don't just spring up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Unless their name is Topeka. Sorry, Kansas. Got to throw a little shade on you, but so that was good. But it was Memphis was great. It was interesting to get back into that side of the world. To hear Republicans talking in general. I don't hang out with I have a lot of friends who are rational Republicans, but to see the Trumpers and all their crazy stuff, that was very interesting too. And the Pray for America people and all that craziness too.
You can come out here during the next election. You'll see plenty of Trumpers.
Well, it was interesting because I did see one of the other films I watched was about the hardcore poverty in some areas of West Virginia. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot of stuff that, especially with the coal mines closing down.
Oh yeah.
Small towns. Interesting. It was the Cumberland River. Look at me. Got Civil War history in the back of my head somewhere. But yeah, so I saw the towns. There's a lot of abandoned towns in West Virginia now.
Oh yeah.
What used to be relatively large, small cities, essentially.
All these old company towns. Yeah, they're. When I did Bridge Day in West Virginia, so they closed the big bridge near Fayette, West Virginia. Can't remember what the name of the bridge is, but it's just a high expanse bridge. And every year, once a year, they close it off, and people base jump off of it. People bungee jump off of it.
It's that big. It's like the Royal Gorge or something.
Or not bungee jump. They rappel down it. Yeah. New River Gorge, and we stayed at a town. And
nice job, James.
Yes. And we stayed at a town that was very close to the river, kind of back up into the mountains, and it was shocking to go there because we pull into this town and we have an Airbnb set up to stay there, and all I see are just old trailers there, just rusted out, and I'm thinking, oh my God, where are we staying? And then all of a sudden, around the corner, you see like this big mansion. Apparently, we were staying in the old coal mine owner's mansion for the night, but it was amazing to see that kind of level of poverty. And then you see like this big, massive mansion, and you know that this is probably maintained from the time that this was an active mine in the area. So
so what this movie was about, saying that there's a real opportunity in these places because there actually is infrastructure to sort of try to create a libertopia, kind of like what people have been trying to do in East Detroit as well. So why is the Free State Project going on in New Hampshire when here in West Virginia we've got these sort of towns that time has forgotten, with people who at least appear to. I mean, that these people are hardworking. There was a scene out of, I don't know if you've ever seen Roger and Me, but which I would recommend. A lot of people
they
dismiss Roger Moore.
Yeah, they hate him, but
right, but you really do need to see Roger and Me. And there's that scene with that young girl selling food rabbits.
Yep.
And it's just that scene will stick with me for the rest of my life. This 12-year-old girl who rabbits, for me, this is my bias, right? But I think rabbits are pets and cute and cuddly. And here she is selling rabbits, and you want to buy a rabbit, she holds it up by the back legs and she hits it over the back of the neck with a bar and kills it, and then she skins it to you and she'll sell it to you for $5 because that's what they need.
Yeah.
And so there was somebody doing a similar thing like that in West Virginia.
The problem with West Virginia is that they are so focused right now on bringing in these massive corporations, massive warehouses, and things like that. They're giving away tax dollars to bring in these corporations. And they sell, like here in the Eastern Panhandle, because we're so close to all the other population centers, and close to the college towns like Huntington or Morgantown. But they're not doing anything for these smaller towns. And they also have just ridiculous occupational licensing here in West Virginia. So there's no way to grow an economy in this state organically and sustainably, because to do anything in this state, it's a holdover. The Democrats instituted it when they controlled the state for years. The Republicans love it because they get a lot of money off of it. They can talk about their surpluses and then give that money off to big businesses to come in and hire a bunch of Ohioans and Pennsylvanians and bring the jobs into the state. But they put these things on the borders, and generally these places just hire out of state folks.
Right. And so that's what they're sort of saying, is that the solution is to create essentially a government-free zone where people can do whatever they want, starting businesses, etc. And maybe somebody in West Virginia would say, okay, that's okay in our town, because our town is essentially dead at this point in time. There's 50 people left in this town, and probably 1,000 teeth between them. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Damn, man. Dan is no longer allowed in West Virginia. The Mothman is going to come get you, man.
Yep. All right.
Well, let's talk about quantum computing. We've gone long on this, but good conversation. Let's talk about quantum computing. So, explain what quantum computing is. I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but let's talk about that.
So, most people know the basics of regular computing are that we discovered a long time ago with transistor that you can put an element into a state of either being on or off with electricity. And actually, long before people were using electricity for computing, famously, Ada, the Countess Lovelace, and James Babbage invented a computer that worked with water instead of with electricity, because it's actually the same principle, right? The electricity flows through the pipes and the wires in a way and does logic but you can actually do that logic with water and sluice gates. So they had built that a long time ago. Around actually at the end of the 40s, we discovered transistors, and then eventually, the silicon chip, where we can make what's called memory, and we can store things, and it's either on or off, what we call binary. And as computers could then read that, you could put out a lot of information, and you could store things in a binary format and store information, change information. But if you can only store things as 1 or 0, then it takes a lot of space to store larger ideas. As an example, you guys have probably heard a bit. A bit is either on or off. And a byte, yeah, see, James is laughing at me. That's laughing. But a byte is 8 bits. And so it's on, off, on, off, on, off. And you can say, well, how many numbers is that? Because it's 8 digits, it's 8 to the second power. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. You store 128 numbers from 0 to 128 in 8 bits. So now when you've heard somebody say a megabyte, that's 1,000,000 bytes. Okay, so you could store 8 times 1,000,000, gigabyte, etc., terabyte. Those are all those things. And we've gotten really good at pushing that stuff into really small spaces so that we can store a lot of information. In quantum computing, instead of using a little piece of silicon to store whether the situation is on or off, we use an atom, one atom. And instead of the atom having only 2 sides, 2 states, on and off, you can actually rotate where the electron is, or the proton is, on the atom. And so you can read that atom, but it can store 1,000,000 different states. So what used to take a megabyte of information, a megabyte of silicon, can now essentially store on one atom, and a computer can read that. That makes things so much more powerful and so fast. Now, quantum computing exists, but at a very small level. There's all sorts of tricks they have to do to make it work. As an example, some of you might have done that physics experiment in high school where you have a whole bunch of wire and a light, and you connect a power current to the wire, and the wire is all spiraled up. And the light turns on, but very dimly. And then you dip the wire in liquid nitrogen, and the light gets super bright because the electricity isn't lost anymore. It's not being diffused through the air. That's the same sort of thing that happens in quantum computing. They surround the entire computer in essentially liquid nitrogen so that they use this this quantum computer. It can only be done in these very contained spaces right now. That being said, where quantum computers are now, and this is sort of the favorite statement that I heard about it when I was really getting into it a couple weeks ago, we know we can do it now. We know that it's possible. The rest of it is just engineering. And so we will eventually get to the stage that really powerful quantum computers will exist. What does that mean for all of us? Well, one of the interesting things that it means is that passwords aren't going to work anymore. Okay, you can give an encrypted password, an encrypted file to a computer that has quantum computing, and it will be able to go through all the possible things that this could be decrypted to, like that. So that level of encryption,
You got a echo.
yeah, that level of computing power is really interesting. But where it becomes really interesting is you think about a couple of things that have happened because of computing. Our ability to model the universe. Okay, Louis Agassiz said. Do you Do I have an echo?
Yeah.
I will work on that. Louis Agassiz said that the mathematics is the language of nature. And there's a lot to that. We learn how to model the world using mathematical models. And the best example of this that everybody knows is weather maps. Weather maps are just mathematical predictions of what's happening and how the Earth is going to respond to a bunch of events. And what they really do is we say, okay, well, we have 100 years worth of weather data. And when it looks like this, tomorrow it's going to look like this. And we're just using prediction models based on earlier models. But we can only put so much data in there. We can't accurately predict tornadoes still, other things. And we don't have the computing power to do all of those things. But when quantum computer comes online, we will be able to do all of that stuff. It's going to solve a tremendous number of medical problems because right now we can't do really good modeling. We can do some modeling in the human body, but we're not great. Computers still don't have that horsepower yet. But with quantum computing, absolutely, we'll be able to entirely model a human system and then do all sorts of learning from that model, things that we can't do now.
So we've seen with AI recently, a lot of the big players of AI have gone to Congress to request regulation of this stuff and have kind of pledged their fealty to give that power to Congress, although they're going to be in the room to write the legislation to protect their job, their work and their industry. I mean, to me, when you start talking about there are going to be no more encryption, there's going to be no more safety in the internet space. I mean, I think maybe we end up finding something different eventually, but what is the likelihood that the government steps in and kind of not necessarily put the kibosh on it, but hogs all of this to themselves?
Well, that sounds like something the government would do. I mean, if we look in the past, what have they done?
I mean, we're looking at it with AI. They have a congressional hearing. They gin up a bunch of fear about what AI is going to do. And granted, there are some concerns, but
what about the children? Yeah.
I mean, and the interesting thing about
yeah.
Yes, that goes better.
Yeah.
All right.
You're good.
I mean, one of the interesting things about it, you're right. If you combine the power of AI where it is right now, and then you think about what quantum computing will do with that, it's going to become very interesting in terms of its capacity to do stuff. And there are already things that computers are doing better than humans. Probably the best example of this, I think we've talked about this beforehand, the Google Translate program, how it used to work, and now how AI created the master language. And so instead of translating, English to French and French to Spanish and Spanish to German, and English to French and English to Spanish and English to German, English to Chinese and English, et cetera, now what Google AI figured out to do is it created a master language, and it translates English to the master language and the master language to whatever language you want to translate it to. So instead of having to have 280 squared, right, translation programs, it only has to have 280 translation programs.
Yeah.
Now, that's really awesome, right? But no human understands the master language. Only computers understand the master language. It's very interesting.
That's terrifying.
And who controls the language.
Right.
Uh-huh.
What's interesting about it, though, is that it sort of shows how the things that AI can do. But notice that that's something that we were saying, solve a problem. That it can do. but it doesn't have any impetus to do anything else. So we just have to make sure we don't ask it to solve the wrong problem. There's a couple of famous books. I would recommend everybody read the I, Robot books by Isaac Asimov. Do not see the movie.
Movie was awful.
The movie would be okay if they didn't call it I, Robot. It was just some other story, but the way it bastardized things. And so one of the things that Asimov points out really well is that, and this is, again, a variation on the monkey's paw story, right? If you're given wishes, you have to be really careful about what you wish for because it can trap you into something. And AI is the same way. You know, if you tell AI, you know, figure out a way to make my room really quiet, AI might say, well, sound can't travel in a vacuum, so I'm just going to institute a vacuum in your room, and then you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing, and learning how to prompt AI is going to be really important too. But yeah, I mean, we're in an interesting place. Interesting from a bunch of different ways because, you know, it's not that far. I've already seen sort of the beginning. People look around, you can find this, the AI gardening machine that essentially it's a small little robot, and it looks at it only manages an 8x4 plot, but it looks in that 8x4 plot, and if it sees something that looks like a weed, it kills it. If it sees something like a bug, it shoos it away. If the plants need water, it puts a little water on it, and it does it all automatically. It grows these amazing crops. And look, here's the benefit: no pesticides, right? Yeah. No herbicides. All these amazing things, and eventually that's going to be expanded to large level farming. Okay, robots are going to run all over the place. And what's really interesting, and we're going to tie into this because we've got to talk about your air conditioning too, is you see some of this happening now as, what do they call it? God, I can't remember the name. I'm so old. It's the intersection of solar power and agriculture. And so a lot of these giant fields that they're putting up solar plants in, they then plant in between them crops.
Yep.
And they use the solar
power in West Virginia.
Yeah, they use the solar power to either, you know, do the robots that are going to take care of the fields or whatever it is. And then there's this other thing they're doing that's pretty awesome too, where they have all these giant solar fields and they bring in sheep and goats to keep the grass under control underneath them, which is also really cool.
That's cool.
But that's the concern that I have on what we're talking about, is that we have robots doing all this. Yeah, we could do it with solar, but the impact on the electrical grid, the impact on climate, the impact, you know, the follow-on impacts of what we do to, you know, have the robots do everything for us, might be, I mean, we're all dealing with massive heat waves, and, or at least, you know, this week we're going to be dealing with a massive heat wave here in West Virginia and Maryland, getting up to 100 later this week. So, you know, we do have to start thinking about what we're doing. How is that going to impact on the electrical grid, and to how do we get cleaner energy out of it? Now, quantum computing hopefully can come up with some kind of answer.
Well, interestingly, quantum computing also. So first of all, AI takes an enormous amount of power. The costs behind it are eye-watering. However, quantum computing currently takes a fair bit of power as well. But one of the things that's around the corner for a lot of us is whole home electrification. And, you know, the biggest consumer of electricity, the thing that eats the most electricity in your house, is your heating and cooling. And anybody who's lived in the South knows when you run the air conditioner, your bills go crazy.
Yep.
You lived in the North, you know that when you heat with electric heat, your bills go crazy. It's why people still use fossil fuels to heat. Yes, AJ.
Except right now in Tennessee, it's both ways. My electric bill has been pretty much the fucking same, like
Yeah.
whether it's cold or it's hot. The only time that it's less than that is like spring, the beginning of spring, and that's it. Because we are using the heat and the air conditioner pretty much regularly. I mean, there's no release from it.
It's Wild Climate
Now,
Springs.
the interesting thing about that is heat pump technology has been around for a while now. And heat pumps use about 1/5 of the amount of electricity as your regular air conditioner or heater, and they do both. So one heat pump will both heat and cool your house for about 20% of what you're paying on your bills right now. Why aren't we using it?
Because somebody's making money the other way.
Exactly. A lot of HVAC places won't install uh, heat pumps. One of the reasons why is because it's mostly electric, so it doesn't have the same wear and tear. And so, your heat pump will usually last like 20 years. However, they sell them at Walmart now. So you can, it's not easy. Actually, let me rephrase that. If the government didn't get in the way, you could install your own heat pump. However, most places have a code that requires the heat pump to have its own separate circuit and on off, which usually requires an electrician, a board certified electrician to do that work.
Yep.
It's not complicated, but if people aren't familiar with how to do that, I would recommend getting a board, excuse me, getting an electrician to do that stuff. That being said, look at what they call the one room units, Minisplits. Look up a mini split on Walmart, and you can find one that will certainly heat your bedroom or your living room for like $500. Installation might cost you $200 or $300 extra. However, if I then to tell you that it's going to save you 80% of your heating costs, you probably make that money back quickly. James, I'm interested into why you hate mini splits.
I got that too with my HVAC guy this week.
Yeah. So, I mean, he works in HVAC too. I mean, one of the reasons why people hate mini splits, in my opinion, is because they don't require any duct work, which is where all the money is and all the labor. You install a mini split and, it both heats and cools a room. It does run all year, but it doesn't do much, right? All it really does is pump the refrigerant around and have a fan in the outside.
Pain in the dick all over the copper.
Right. Now that part, I will agree that you do have to run the wires.
And then your house is a target. Well, of course, your house is a target with a standard air conditioning unit too. So
right,
and copper.
It is true that you can't really use Plex there because you need the solid part of it to be able to compress and expand the refrigerant. Not to go too much into it, but everybody's heard of a compressor. And why a compressor is important is that when you compress a liquid, it gives off heat. And when you allow it to expand, it sucks in heat. And that's literally what a heat pump does, is in one place, it expands the gases and absorbs heat. Another place, sorry, I have backwards. It expands the gases, gives off heat. Another place, it compresses the gases, and it becomes cold. If you've ever sprayed one of those little electrical...
Hey, I expand and contract gas a lot.
Right. But so I mean that's the basic idea about it. Geothermal, is good. You combine it with a heat pump and you start to get extraordinary results. But look around. I mean, I don't want to discount James' experiences of saying that he's had issues with mini splits, but I may or may not have installed one myself.
Yeah,
I'm lucky enough to live in a place where I don't have to comply with any building codes. And so, and my partner may or may not have been a journeyman electrician. So we felt comfortable doing it ourselves.
nice.
And it's 100% true, as opposed to just the window unit that I have in my window running the air conditioner, opposed to the heat pump. It's exactly what we said. It is a 80% savings, which, for my window unit and air conditioning, that's like $80 a month. That's not nothing,
No,
right? I mean, that's we still run the whole house air conditioner sometimes. We haven't replaced the mini splits in all the other rooms, but especially, for my wife, now she works for her home. Her job has become more complicated, and so she needs greater resources than she was able to just do on her laptop. So now she works in her office, and you have a bunch of monitors that adds a lot of heat into the room. And so putting a mini split in there so that we can keep the room cool. Well, and actually, what's really fascinating about it is you can buy heat pump dryers now and a lot of other cool appliances. A heat pump dryer is a ventless dryer, which already is pretty awesome in my opinion. And it uses so much less energy.
interesting.
It actually runs longer, but it uses less energy. Heat pump, you already have a heat pump. Your refrigerator is a heat pump. It's just one way, right? It makes the inside cold, it makes the outside hot. But other appliances, heat pumps are coming into them right now.
It's like
Technology
a
is getting better and better.
Remember those old? It's like a McDLT. Remember those old McDLTs? One side hot
Keeps
side,
the hot side hot and the
stays-
cold side cold.
That's right. Back in the day when we could have styrofoam with our lunches.
Yeah. So I definitely think, talking about whole home electrification. And then the one other thing about this is that, we have, and I confess that I am guilty on this several times. I have upgraded my home house electricity from 110 to 220 so that the amount of electricity coming to the house was more. And I did that because I thought, oh, well, and actually the house we had in Boston was ridiculous. We lived in 3,800 square feet, which is stupid for Boston. But it cost, with all those rooms, we thought, oh, we need more electricity. But really, you don't, because there are smart things that you can do in the power box now, where in the fuse box, you have these smart connectors and it says, you can't have the dryer on while you're running the dishwasher or an electric oven or the range, something like that. And it can be smart about it. And if you do that, then you don't have to be up to 220. 220 is if you want to have every electrical appliance on in your house at once. But we don't need to do that anymore. Just a little bit of thought.
Yeah.
Do I have to have the dryer and the stove on at the same time? Probably not. Do I have to have all 5 burners on my stove? No, usually not. Sometimes I do. But the technology is there now that we can be smarter about how electricity is used in our house as well. I'm going to, I can't do it right now, but I will put a link to a YouTube channel that I follow called The Technology Connection, where the guy talks at length about whole home electrification. And we have the capacity in our lifetimes to cut our power usage by really, I think, easily 60 to 70%.
Oh, the
Just
energy
change
companies
the
will
switch over to LEDs
squeal.
and heat pumps make an enormous difference in our lives and our personal economies.
Oh yeah, surge protectors. Yes, definitely get your stuff on surge protectors. In this conversation, good stuff on mini splits and quantum computing and all that good stuff. So this week is our first of our country features. Last week we chose, or 2 weeks ago, we chose the Vatican as our first country to feature. So I'm going to hide the chat overlay. And I've got a little video. I'm going to start talking about the Vatican.
Awesome. Play the video. I'm gonna go get water.
We're getting a lot of feedback from your side again. I think. Yeah, AJ, see if that might be from you, or maybe from me. Who knows? That might have been for me. I don't know. All right, so let's talk about the Vatican City.
Go get some water.
All right, the Vatican City is in the Italian peninsula, actually within the entire city of Rome. It's the smallest country in the world. Just 1,000 people, it's smallest by population and land area. We'll take a nice zoom into the most famous part of Vatican City, which is St. Peter's Basilica and St. Peter's Square. So the Basilica is where the Holy Roman or the Pope holds Mass indoors, and the Square is where they have the masses held outdoors for special events and occasions. Also, St. Peter's Square is where the people will gather when they're electing a pope and waiting for the smoke. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also, let's talk a little bit about the basilica. It was built. The original basilica was built in 333 by Emperor Constantine. It was sacked by a Muslim conquest in 864. And wow, it stopped. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, it was rebuilt between 1506 and 1626 to finance the building of St. Peter's Basilica. They actually did things like a sale of indulgences. So the Pope at the time and the Catholic Church at the time was selling the ability to sin and things like that. And the resulting of that was controversies within the German Catholic Church that led to the Protestant Reformation led by Martin Luther. So this basilica right here, and I'm sad that it's frozen. There we go. Go on some more. It's running a little slow. But anyway, this is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. This is where it is. There are two different phrases when we talk about Vatican City. Vatican City is the land that the Catholic Church has here in Rome. It's also called the Holy See, and the Holy See refers to the government of the Vatican City, which is, of course, is led by the Pope. There are 1,000 people in the country. Pope Francis is the current Pope. I'm going to freeze it here if I can. Oh, well, go back a little bit. This is the College of Cardinals right here. So when there is a new Pope, and last time we've had an election of a Pope was in 2013 when Pope Benedict retired, and which is rather unheard of. Usually, they're taken out stiff when we get a new Pope. But Pope Benedict decided to retire as he was advancing in age and having poor health issues. And then in 2013, the College of Cardinals meet in consistory to vote on the new Pope. Majority of Cardinals must agree on the new Pope before they put that name forward. If you see here, they're all in their cardinal red frocks and all that good stuff. If you look down in the bottom corner of this picture, you see one of the Swiss Guard. The Vatican City does not have a standing army because it is that small. The security is handled by the Swiss Guard. Don't mess around in Vatican City. The Swiss Guard are elite. They will mess you up. So they are dressed very colorfully, blues and reds and yellows. Very distinctive hats with the feathers on top. But yeah, there are about 220 cardinals in the world. Generally, they fall into three categories. There's the cardinals that are the archbishops of the local archdiocese of the Catholic Church. Then there are cardinals that are within the government of the Vatican City, the Holy See. And then there are and the third type are the cardinals that are part of the diplomatic corps of the Holy See, going out to various countries. So that's the three types of cardinals. To be able to vote for Pope, though, you have to be under the age of 80. So there's about 220 cardinals, as I mentioned. Only about 120 of them are eligible to vote for a Pope at this point if an election was to happen today. Yes,
Wait,
yeah.
there is an age limit on voting for the Pope.
Yeah,
Is there an
because
age limit on the Pope?
well, not necessarily. I mean, the last guy retired because he was advancing in age and had poor health. But the current guy is 86 years old and has had health issues recently. So we may be getting another election here pretty soon. Um,
Because we need
but
another election.
yeah, um,
It's going to be a busy year, y'all.
yeah. So yeah, who knows? I mean, again, most of these guys get taken out on a stretcher. They don't retire like the last guy did. So it can Pope John Paul the second held on for a long time despite failing health, and so it could happen tomorrow. It could happen 5 years from now. Who knows? But yeah, he's 86 at this point. So within the next 10 years or so, I'm sure we're going to have a new pope chosen. Um, uh, he is Pope Francis, the first one to take that name. He was born
In
Jorge.
Argentina.
Yeah, he was born in Argentina. He's the first pope to be brought in from the Americas. He's not the first non-European pope. There have been a few that have come from the Middle East. I think 11 different popes have been non-European, but first one in a long time to not come from the European continent, and first one in ages. The last two have been the first in ages to not be really directly involved in the Italian church. So. But yeah, I think I had his name earlier.
One of the things that I have always thought is interesting is that Vatican City is technically the smallest country in the world.
Yes, it is so small. It's 70% of the size of the Washington Mall. So,
I am interested in competing to be the 100-meter dash champion of Vatican City
and you'll
and
probably
maybe
get
represent them in the Olympics.
sniped down by a Swiss guard doing that. So,
Well, that's interesting. I mean, did you talk about that, about how the Swiss Guard are the
yeah,
people who maintain the order? And it's interesting because there was a period where there were two popes and two homes
yes,
for the pope, Avignon being the other,
yep,
and but they didn't have the Swiss Guard.
the Holy Roman Empire. Yeah. Now, the Swiss guard are absolutely elite. They wear the funny outfits, but they will mess you up. So, but with the College of Cardinals, when they do meet, they have an interesting way of announcing how a person getting elected. Now, the music you hear in the background is actually I didn't really realize that they would have one, but they have a national anthem of the Vatican. So it's very churchy sounding, lots of organs, lots of choir singing. But um, there we go. All right. So when they have an election, if they go through a vote, they burn the ballots and add something to it that produces this black smoke. And then when they finally choose a vote, choose ballots, it's something that causes this white smoke, and it's the first indication that we do have a new pope. Habemus Papum is what they declare when they do all that fun stuff. But yeah, that is the Vatican City. I didn't get too much into there are controversies within the Vatican. Of course, we know that about the sex scandals, the child molestation. Several dioceses throughout the world are going through issues with molestation charges and things like that. But it's been very the Vatican has it leads 1 billion people throughout the world. Most of them are in South America. There's a good population Europe, there's a good population in the United States that believe in the Roman Catholic faith. So, but yeah, that's the
Do
Vatican
I
City.
need a passport to enter Vatican City?
Well, I mean, you need a passport to go to Italy.
Yes, but then I don't get
So
checked again going from
I
Rome
don't
to
think
Vatican
so.
City.
I don't
I'm
think you
pretty
get
sure
checked
not.
as long as, yeah, as long as you're in Rome and walking across the border. It's really just walking into the St. Peter's Square to
Right.
take in. Of course, at the apostolic mansion, the palace that the Pope lives in is, of course, is the Sistine Chapel is in
Right.
there. A lot of the building, the basilica was built by Bernini and Michelangelo.
Michelangelo
As well. So it.
And the other Ninja Turtle.
Donatello.
Sorry. Yes. I couldn't resist that. I always think of when people think about countries, Vatican City is such an interesting country because in many ways it's the most artificial of all the countries. Now, we can make an argument about Sealand and we can talk about that later. But of course, I come from a place where I think most countries are actually artificial, right? They're just lines drawn on maps.
Yeah.
People be whatever they want. And so when I think about Vatican City, I think about how ridiculous the idea of countries truly is.
Yeah.
I don't think they have their own currency. I think they use
they're
part of the EU.
You only have 1,000 people living there.
Right.
With Vatican City, it's really, it used to be that the Vatican controlled much more of the Italian peninsula and the Papal States and things like that.
Right.
When the Kingdom of Italy was established in the 1800s, they ended up encroaching and actually taking over the land of the Vatican for a number of years. It wasn't until 1929 there was three different treaties that were signed that actually gave Vatican City as an independent state. So it's technically only been independent for a little under 100 years now. But there are three enclave countries, and this is considered an enclave country in the world. Do you know the other two enclave countries? Completely surrounded by another country.
Mongolia.
No.
Oh, completely surrounded by one country.
By one country, yes.
Let me see.
One is in Italy and one is in Africa. The other one is in Italy.
The one in Italy is
best full name of country ever.
The Principality of San Luis Marzipano.
No.
Damn it. I don't know what it is.
It is the most serene Republic of San Marino.
Damn it. I knew it was San Marino.
Wow.
It is the oldest constitutional state in the world. We'll feature that at some point. But the other state is Lesotho in South Africa. It's completely surrounded by South Africa. So those are the only two enclave countries. There's a few countries that have exclaves outside of their own borders. But yeah, those are the three fully enclave countries in the world. So that's our bit on Italy. Are you guys ready for the news quiz?
Quiz it up, baby.
Let's do this. All right, got to take the chat off. Sorry, guys.
I'm having a good hair day. I just wanted to mention. This doesn't happen very well.
I need a haircut, but my hair is somewhat decent today. I mean, it's not matted to my head sweaty.
Humidity. Don't look at me.
You always have a good hair day.
I agree.
So I wear a scarf or a hat.
Right. All right, here's the news quiz. Let me put this off to the side here. Okay. Context clues. We got the DMZ.
Right. We know what that story is going to be.
Powerball being over $1 billion. Somebody won it in California. And then Is that an explosion? It looks more like an explosion than a tornado, but probably it's a tornado.
I wonder if it's a flood.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
see. All right, question number 1. Blistering heat is being reported across the world as millions of people swelter through a hot summer. Which temperature set a record high in Arizona this week?
It's going to be over
100.
120. 118.
Yeah, I guess it's got to be at
118.
118. Yeah. Because those other temperatures are generally normals for
No,
Arizona in
yeah.
the summer.
Right. One of them is hot, but
Yeah.
somebody
If
was telling me
it's
that there's a temperature at which they won't let airplanes take off because the rubber gets too hot on the tarmac.
oh, I bet.
And
Wow.
they said that one of the other real damages to this is that people have been falling over and on the street in this weather. And if it's 100 and over 110 in the air, then the road with the black asphalt's like at 160 degrees. You touch it, it can burn you.
All right. Question number 2. Which tennis player won the Wimbledon men's final? Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, Rafael Nadal, or Roger Federer?
What do you think, AJ?
She knows.
What sport was this? What did
Tennis.
it say?
Tennis.
Tennis. Oh, sorry. As soon as it's like starts asking, no idea.
Carlos Alcaraz.
Yes.
Is he cute?
He's pretty cute. He's young. This is a lot of people think this is the big changing of the guard.
Yeah, because he beat Novak Djokovic. Yeah.
Really
So-
intense eyebrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's 19.
That is a
Yeah.
That is a perfect helmet of hair right there.
Yeah.
It
It's
really is.
it's the head of hair that a 19-year-old has.
Yeah.
I'm not bitter at all. Fuck you.
All right. The world's largest office building is set to welcome its first occupants in November. Where is it located? India, China, Japan, or the United States?
Wow, I have no idea.
I don't either.
AJ,
I
what
was
do you
going to bet on Dubai, but
That's what I was going to say. I think it was like the Burj Khalifa or something.
well, the Burj Khalifa is I can't imagine because that is an office building.
Right.
I can't
But clearly
imagine
it's
a
not it.
larger.
Kind of wonder if it's India because they've done the free buses for women for the lower wage jobs.
Yeah, and Japan's a
And-
country in decline.
Although
I don't
actually,
know.
actually
That-
Japan's actually had some their economy's getting better right now. But it's
I
either
don't know.
They're not building
China
the
or
largest
India.
office building in the world. I
it's
think
either China or India.
let's vote India.
Let's do India.
Uh,
Oh, we
Yeah,
got it.
good job, AJ.
Hey, way to go, AJ.
yay.
Wow, that is crazy.
Oh, it's the world's largest, not tallest.
right.
Never mind. Okay, that
Well,
makes
but
That is
I had come
ugly
to the
as
conclusion that
hell.
if it were tallest, it could also be the largest. But this is a weird little. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
I was thinking it was something weird, but
it looks
yeah.
like dominoes.
it's very modular. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would really count that as one building, but
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. 7 million square feet of floor space. India's Surat Diamond Bourse has surpassed the Pentagon as the world's largest office building. Interesting.
Oh, good for them.
All right, question number
don't
4.
tell the
Which fast,
Pentagon because we'll bomb it.
which fast food chain banned employees in some locations from wearing face masks while on the job? McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, or In-N-Out? I'm seeing red and yellow, so that looks like McDonald's. But
Yeah, it doesn't seem like McDonald's would do that. James says Burger King. But I mean,
I don't see Burger King colors, though. Well,
I mean, we can go McDonald's. Doesn't seem like McDonald's would do it, but maybe they would.
well, they all have red in there. And Burger King does have some gold in it, so it could be Burger King.
Yeah. I mean, it could also be In-N-Out for sure. Fuck it. Let's go McDonald's. In all things fast food, McDonald's is always the best guess.
No,
Damn it.
In-N-Out.
Mm.
In and out.
Wow.
So, although vulnerable individuals still might want to wear a mask in
That's
crowded areas,
crazy.
employees at In-N-Out are being told they must show their smiles in order to emphasize the importance of customer service. That's lovely. All right. Question number 5. For the first time in decades, a U.S. soldier is believed to be detained in which country?
This one,
Russia, Cuba, North Korea, or Libya? Yeah, this one's
the North Korea.
Democratic People's Republic of North Korea.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
DPRK.
It's a strange little story.
It is. I don't know. So, part of me is like, okay, look, if you're an American soldier who defects to North Korea, you're probably going to get treated pretty well. It's a PR coup for the North Koreans. But any slight, I mean, remember that kid Otto
Yeah.
Warmbier who took a fucking poster and
Yep.
ended up dead. I mean,
Brain dead. Ended up brain dead. Returned to his parents brain dead, and then he died like a month later.
Yeah, any slight while you stay in North Korea could end. I mean, at the best case scenario, you die. you know.
Yeah, that was the craziest shit. Yeah, it's insane.
To avoid punishment, probably, getting kicked out of the military. This guy obviously had some issues going on.
Yep.
And
I will say,
made bad choice.
Did you ever see the movie White Knights?
With Baryshnikov
and Gregory Hines.
Gregory Hines, yeah.
That's kind of the plot to this, right? Gregory Hines is a jazz musician who defects to the Soviet Union to protest how bad things are for blacks in America.
Yeah.
So I suspect that there's going to be a tap dancing movie coming out of this.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, but he made his bed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to. Yeah, they're probably going to end up sending over Bill Richardson to negotiate.
Dennis Rodman, right? Dennis Rodman was the last guy to go to North Korea to negotiate.
Yeah, one of those guys, because Richardson's been able to get through to them. Rodman can get through.
Who would have seen that coming?
But yeah. I wouldn't. I'm not sure I would put any extraordinary effort into getting this guy back. I mean, he made the choice.
Yeah, I will also say, if you haven't seen The Interview with, James Franco is sort of persona non grata, but The Interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco.
I think they're both kind of persona non grata now, aren't they?
Seth Rogen also?
I don't think so.
No, which one's which one was the
You're thinking about Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill, that's it. Okay.
Yeah. Jonah Hill, that was some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Apparently a piece of shit.
Yeah. However, I do recommend, in spite of James Franco being it, watching The Interview, which is the movie that made fun of North Korea.
But don't
North Korea to hack Tony, all that stuff.
Don't watch that remake of Red Dawn
with
where they made North Korea invade us. Like, okay, really? Because you didn't want to piss off the Chinese?
Right.
Yeah. Question number 6. Firefighters are struggling to contain Canada's wildfires that have already scorched millions of acres. Around how many fires are actively burning throughout the country?
935.
70, 210, 630, or 880?
880. It's the most. I think it's $1.
Oh, never mind.
I'd buy that for $1.
All right, let's do 880. Yes, 880 active fires throughout Canada. What is that all about? Take off A.
So it's worth mentioning that although this is the biggest fire in Canadian history, it is not unprecedented. There have been comparably big fires in the past. It's this giant wilderness. And although, yes, climate change, yes, super hot, all that stuff, it's not two things. So first of all, it's not like this has never happened before, but when it does happen, it's actually good for the climate. Let's talk about the year without a summer, when Krakatoa exploded. And the Earth, the Northern Hemisphere, never got over 70 degrees that year. That does a lot of good stuff for global warming.
It helps to an extent, but also, folks who are vulnerable to things like asthma and things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, it was bad a couple of days when I went into DC. Um, walking down the street, I was hacking up because it was just, it bothers your lungs and it's
They're
thick.
saying an uptick in respiratory illnesses. So yeah.
Did you wear a mask, Dave?
No, I did not.
Yeah. For everybody who's watching, if you're in one of those situations, dude, N95 kicks ass in those situations. Definitely wear one. I'm a COPD person, and I will wear an N95 when the stuff gets bad. And it's not, folks. I mean, you can work in that. People do construction in N95 masks. That's what they were made for, and they're really good at filtering out smoke.
Yeah, I just, being a big
Yep.
dude walking down the street in DC and 95% or 95 degrees, it sucks. All right, question number 7. Which city warned its residents about a suspected lioness on the loose this week? I remember hearing something about this.
Suspected
Paris, Berlin,
lioness.
Rome, or Amsterdam?
I have no
I
idea.
think it was Berlin.
I mean, if it was a cougar, I would say New York. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it was either Berlin or Amsterdam, but I think it was Berlin. Those Germans were into some kinky shit.
I agree. Although, I mean, Amsterdam's into some kinky shit too. Nice
Hey.
job.
Yeah, I remember seeing the story. I just couldn't remember which city it was. But yeah, residents of the German capital Berlin were alarmed when police Thursday said a suspected lioness was on the loose in the southwestern part of the city. Sounds like fun.
Suspected lioness. So we have like a
Did they find it? That's
an update.
well.
Was she actually just fucking hiding? Like what?
This quiz came out on Thursday, so it was the same day
What happened to the German lioness? I must know.
I know. But I mean, it was the United States that would have shot it like 85 times. Question number 8. Which extreme weather event occurred in North Carolina this week, prompting temporary closure of a major highway? Oh, yeah. This was a tornado. It hit a plant, some kind of plant there. That's that contact clue that we had earlier.
Again, this is another one where I actually have no idea.
Yeah. So a massive tornado in North Carolina severely damaged several structures, shut down a major interstate, and injured more than a dozen people Wednesday. I can't remember what plant that was, but it was, I mean, it's like a massive.
I was going to guess
warehouse
the Lluvia de Pesa, which is the rain of fishes, which occasionally happens when a water spout or tornado travels over water and sucks fish way up into the air, and then they rain down on everybody.
Sharknado.
Sharknado, exactly.
Yeah, it was EF3, 150 mile an hour. All right, which state sold a single Powerball ticket this week?
You ruined it for us, Dave.
I did. $1 billion jackpot prize. That was California because they know how to party.
She showed me the beach, gave me a peach, pulled out the suntan lotion.
Word.
I'm going back to Cali. Sorry.
No, I don't think so.
Nice.
Yeah, so the Mega Millions is up to 820, I believe now. That draws on Tuesday.
I tell you what, I like to buy those tickets because even though I know I'm not going to win, the 10 minutes of thinking about what I would do with that money.
Oh yeah,
it's so blissful.
All right, so question: Would you do the lump sum or would you do the annuity?
I do the lump.
I mean, for me, it leaves so much money on the table.
But that's not true because there's opportunity costs. So I mean, if you were to take the money and just invest it all in, Dow Jones or some other index fund, you would make more than what you're leaving behind.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know, I think at that point I could live on, $27 odd million a year or however many.
You can, Dave. But again, it's just the math is wrong. It's a structured payment, and so let's just say you want to write $1 billion, so you would get it's a 20-year.
But then I can go to J.G. Wentworth.
You get $50 million a year. But the problem is that in 20 years, $50 million is going to be worth 20 cents.
Yeah, I mean,
So take the lump sum,
Yep.
take your lumps, and then I
Yep.
would just disappear. To be
Oh,
honest,
yeah.
I would just disappear.
yeah, I mean,
I would.
people would
I
not remember who I was. That's how hard I would disappear. Like,
Oh yeah,
Jay-
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would try to buy my own country.
You would buy Liberland?
Yes, exactly.
There you
Not Lieberland. Lieberland's not a good one, but Sealand, there's something going on there. I like that idea.
Oh, the platform there in the North Sea?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Question number 10. Which prestigious university announced its president will resign following findings of manipulation in academic research?
Does it help if I tell you that color is cardinal?
It does, because I saw the story earlier this week.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Stanford, Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, and it was Stanford University.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, though, is that the Texas A&M president also resigned recently.
Why did they resign?
So he tried to hire a woman to be a professor.
Girlfriend?
Already scandalous at Texas A&M. But she is regarded as woke.
Oh, Lord.
And it caused so much trouble that he had to resign.
Wow.
Jesus.
But this guy cheated, and so he got caught by the school paper.
Yep.
A good bit of journalism.
It is. And remember, if you're an academic, building your career off of academic bona fides, remember, all this stuff is find outable, you know?
Right. And remember, too, if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter.
You're a jock, man. You're a jock.
Well, it's going to be interesting, though, to think that one of the things that people might be doing in the future, this leads to a great conversation, is AI might be reviewing everybody's credentials.
Sure.
Right? Because so many people are out there still working with fake credentials. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Fake college degrees, all that shit. Whereas AI could start validating all of those things. I mentioned that because I started watching Suits. I'm halfway through season 2. And I think you can take the quiz off the screen. Oh, wait, no, we got to see our score.
Oh, we got 9 out of 10.
Yay.
Way to go. Yoo-hoo.
So I started watching Suits, which I'd never seen, but all I knew about it was it starred Meghan Markle.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really have a high opinion of Meghan Markle, but I have a much higher opinion of her now, having watched the show, even though that's ridiculous because she's nothing like her character, as far as I know, right? I actually just like her character. But, boy, what a good show. I have not enjoyed a walk and talk drama as much of that since West Wing, I think.
West Wing was good.
West Wing's amazing.
Yeah.
No question about it. This is like West Wing light. The topics are a little bit less serious. And they have, sort of the Deus Ex Machina stuff occasionally. But it's really clever dialogue.
West Wing, I've really enjoyed both West Wing and what was it? Sports Night was the other one that he did on network. And then he did the Newsroom on HBO. Did you ever watch the Newsroom?
I never did. I saw the
phenomenal show.
Really?
Wonderful show. Yeah.
I'll check it out on your recommendation.
It's only like 2 seasons, and it was like every episode was, it's kind of
the Dumb and Dumber guy, right?
Yeah. It's kind of couch. It's kind of like a Keith Olbermann, but he's not Keith Olbermann. But
I saw the big speech about America being the #1 country. That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen that, but I haven't seen any of the other stuff.
And then he, but everything is kind of couched in real news stories, so it's really cool.
Right.
Really good story. Really good storytelling. Aaron Sorkin, of course, has his great
Yep.
monologues and stuff like that during his shows. But it was a really good show.
I will check it out. It's good because after I finish Suits, I'll need something else. But I
Yeah,
will
I mean,
say,
it's not going to take you long. It's only a 2-season show, so
right. I don't think Suits will take that long either because it's like USA, so it's like 12 episode seasons or something.
yeah, amazing. All right, wow, I think we've exceeded our time tonight. We're at 11:45 Eastern.
Right.
Are we
That
good for the good?
pounding on the floor that you hear, neighbors downstairs telling us that it's time to go home.
You don't have to stay here, or you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
But well, let's pick a country for next week.
All right. I picked the last one, so one of you guys has got to pick a country.
All right, AJ, what country do you want to learn about next week?
I am going to Reggae Fest this next weekend, so I think we should learn about Jamaica.
Jamaica.
All right, Jamaica, man. Yeah, all right. Well,
All
that
right.
works.
I got dibs on the volcano story because that's the best.
Okay, that works. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us this week on the Political Deep Dive. James, Jasper, all the folks who have commented tonight, we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Let me find the outro. There we go. So have a good one, everybody. Take care.